When Xi Jinping and Ma Ying-jeou addressing each other as Mr., does it mean a political agreement of the status across the Taiwan Straits? Or is it just a very pragmatic approach of making one meeting happen?
I would say
I have to ask Professor Cheng first.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say you used the right word, pragmatic. It is a pragmatism that is in command on this matter, because we have long ago we've always been associated. We're also used to the controversy that comes along with official titles. Which side should call which side what title? But this time, in order to make this happen, this historical event carries a very significant impact on the cross-strait relations, because we all know that Taiwan at this moment is standing at a historical juncture. We may see another turnover in a ruling party again by the year 2016. So whether the past peaceful co-development can maintain itself in the coming years has a lot to do with whether the new person who's in charge of Taiwan can accept the 1992 consensus in the One China policy. But this time, in order to make the two leaders from both sides to meet, they're willing to take up a pragmatic title, which is the leaders from both sides.
All right.
And it also shows from our polling that over 70% of the citizens in Taiwan is willing to accept this.
All right, very interesting. Mr. Yang, though, what is your analysis of this title and the way they want to address each other and the way they want the outside world to address them while they are meeting? Leaders from across the strait seems to be quite equal. It sounds like, at least. How much does that have to do with what Professor Cheng from Taiwan believes the upcoming election?
Well, you mentioned the mutual equal footing. Actually, this is approach reflects the equal footing between the two sides. Although it's one side is pretty big, the other is pretty small. But more important thing is such a format or such approach open a new platform for the highest level engagement between two sides. That's why this is the biggest news in this year, even biggest news in the past 60 years between two sides across the strait.
So is this more about the local election or much more than that?
No election, but much more on that. On one hand, Beijing doesn't want to intervene the internal election on the islands because the backfire. Beijing is not smart enough to prevent that from happening. On the other hand, Beijing look at the long run rather than the existing shift of the power or the existing situation. I think the significance of the meeting Beijing launched is designed to set up a framework for the high-level political engagement between the two sides. That is what Beijing seeks for, rather than the individual elections.
Mr. Tsang, we all understand throughout the past history, the engagement between Beijing and Taipei before election could be a plus, but it could also be a backfire. It really depends on circumstances. So what do you think is really the purpose of this meeting? How long, even more importantly, can the impact of this meeting continue for the next term of whoever is going to be the leader of Taiwan, or even further?
I think the meeting has several important implications. Number one is the first of a kind in the last 6 decades, for example, to have leaders across time to meet for the first time face to face and talk to each other directly. Secondly, I think this meeting will send out a strong message that the cooperation across Taiwan Strait will continue based on this 92 consensus, and also send a message to the Asian countries that this connection, this consolidation will be the base for further development in the region. And the United States' national interests will also be preserved because a peaceful, strong China will grow in the future. A steady, mutually beneficial connections across Taiwan Strait would be a plus for the United States to preserve its national interests.
Our conversation is already going everywhere. It's just
That's
about
true.
across the Taiwan Straits, about the history, about local election in the immediate terms, and it's all about China-U.S. relations. Let's focus some of these points one by one. First of all, from the Taiwan side, as far as we know, there's no joint statement will be issued according to the Taiwan side, and no agreement will be signed. Professor Cheng, once again, how much impact will this meeting be and the continuation of its impact in the near future?
I think this
Let
is,
Professor Cheng, I have to ask Professor Cheng once again.
yeah. I think
Professor Cheng, please.
Oh,
I would say, yes. I would say that in terms of election, I do not think that this meeting is going to carry any significant impact or immediate impact on the outcome of election. However, it is a fact that this historic breakthrough does demonstrate that the two leaders can sit down together face to face and communicate in a deep, meaningful manner in which you are going to see, and I strongly believe, that they will demonstrate an atmosphere of cooperation, of goodwill, and good faith. And in that sense, you're going to see a trust developing. That kind of political trust is based exactly on what you just talked about, the 1992 consensus and the One China policy. And that kind of effect would turn around and show the Taiwanese voters, see how important that is. Because in current days, you've seen Tsai Ing-wen, the DPP candidate, trying to avoid the cross-strait policy issues. But that particular dialogue and meeting is going to show us that with this consensus, with this common ground, you're going to have a positive sum interaction instead of a lose-lose zero-sum game.
All right. About 92 consensus, about One China policy, there are different interpretations, as we know, over the years between the mainland and Taiwan. And the two sides have agreed to, in a way, to express their own versions, both to their domestic constituencies and also to the rest of the world. How are we going to see this meeting, the one taking place between, to take place, shall we say, Xi Jinping and Ma Ying-jeou, likely to make a difference in the past records in that sense?
Well, it's a very good question. Actually, the meeting itself show a actual consensus between two sides on the 92 consensus, say, One China policy. In other words, without such a consensus about One China policy, that's impossible for the two ministers meeting. And the meeting, even without any tangible results from the meeting, but the meeting itself has indicated that the base and the framework of the One China policy will be the one for the following development between the two sides. Any trends along this framework will facilitate peace and development, or will go turbulence across the strait.
We see, Mr. Tsang, over the years, there have been really some dramatic up and downs between the mainland and Taiwan. 2009, if I should just rewind a little bit and go back into history, Ma Ying-jeou and also Xi Jinping exchanged their messages, very warm messages, and people applauded across the Taiwan Straits. 1 year later, very historical trade pact was signed by the two sides. However, several years later, after that, there seemed to be some kinds of what people describe as psychological impact of the rise of the mainland on Taiwan, and also the different understanding of the impact of the rising mainland for Taiwan's future, together with Taiwan's own social problems, such as the wealth gap. So will this one be able to also talk to the public consensus about what can happen between the two sides, the mainland and Taiwan, and what really is the mainland having in mind toward having certain kind of future with Taiwan? Mr. Tsang.
I think this meeting has happened not by accident, but by design. It requires the total efforts on both sides of Taiwan Straits to work hard.
Absolute efforts.
Behind the curtain, and now it happens. Obviously, it's a beneficial action to be taken to make both sides of Taiwan Strait feel they have a steady a objective to accomplish, to benefit them at the same time. So I think China meeting the leader on the Taiwan side has not only broken the ice, but also sent out a very strong message all over the place to say that we will go this direction, and there's nothing can stop from doing that. In the past, there were up and downs, of course, between mainland China and Taiwan, which is very natural. Because in Taiwan itself, on mainland, there are different dynamics working underneath the curtain, behind the curtain. So when that happens, it'll be handled one by one successfully. So this is another milestone to be achieved to go further. So I think this is a good development, everything considered.
Professor Cheng, what is your interpretation?
I'd say that it is a very significant progress on both sides, especially for Taiwanese citizens. In Taiwan, people still feel somewhat uneasy about the relationship with mainland China, even though the economic benefits are very clear. But because of the media campaign and twisted spinning by the DPP, you can see a lot of the untrue, biased reports about China still on Taiwanese television, on radio shows. Therefore, you get a group of people who are still not very comfortable with developing further relationship with mainland China. Yet, this kind of meeting is going to demonstrate to our people in Taiwan, to people in Taiwan, that these two gentlemen, they can communicate effectively and in a very warm manner. And that goes to show that trust is of vital importance in the interaction between Taiwan and mainland China. And I'm sure with Mr. Xi Jinping's charisma and his finesse, he's going to persuade Taiwanese audience on TV. Over the TV, people are going to feel very comfortable with him. We have to be very frank that Mr. Xi doesn't appear that often on Taiwanese TV screens. But with this meeting, people are going to witness on a first-hand basis that he is such a charismatic leader with a very, very warm attitude.
All right. At least that's for the public over there in Taiwan. But Mr. Yang, when we are analyzing this event, we always say, what a nice surprise, what a beautiful surprise.
Yeah.
The reason we are saying a surprise is because it's been so hard to come by, more than 60 years, first of all. And secondly, it is not the first time that you heard about the efforts being made in order for the leaders across the Taiwan Straits to meet.
Yep.
Even last year's APEC,
Oh,
there
yes.
were already news coming out suggesting, there might be a meeting of
Yeah,
some
many
sort.
expectations,
But
yeah.
eventually, it didn't happen. Long expected, eventually come into being. What do you think are the busy pedaling beneath the river that's been happening over the past few months, if not years? What eventually make it possible?
Well, obviously, the determination for the peaceful unification through the peaceful development cooperation between two sides. In fact, both Mr. Xi and Mr. Ma shared a similar determination for the peaceful development towards the peaceful unification. I think this is a fundamental driving force to drive this difficult process to get this happy, pleasant results. And although this meeting, as I said, without no tangible agreement, however, that really opened a new era. During the past more than 6 decades, no any high level, such a high level meeting between the two sides. I think this meeting itself is a result, it's an agreement.
All right, before we go, Professor Cheng, final question for you. We heard from both sides that the two leaders from across the straits, they are going to have a meeting, and then eventually they're going to have a dinner afterward. So what about some of the most important issues from Taiwan's perspective, for example, is international status, how the relations across the Taiwan Strait likely to influence its future? From the mainland's perspective, what about the one China possibility in the future? How can the two sides work in that direction? And also on some important regional and international issues as well. So do you think those issues will be likely discussed? To what extent do you think?
Well, I would say that with 1 or 2 hours meeting time, it would be almost next to impossible to cover all those policy issues that you've just mentioned. However, I would say that a personal connection, a kind of atmosphere created, is very helpful in this regard. In other words, people need to know whether Mr. Xi Jinping is sincere enough, whether he's serious enough about helping out Taiwan to face up to what we're experiencing now. After all, citizens, people, especially the younger ones, they are very concerned about their domestic, their internal issues. They are concerned with the economic matters that they face every day: unemployment, wealth distribution, health, everything. But if China and Taiwan, both sides, the cross-strait, can work together, a lot of these issues can be dealt with effectively. So I think the people would feel comfortable once they know that this meeting is going on smoothly, and they can expect further cooperation between the two sides.
The result, of course, of this meeting could be long-lasting, the impact of it. And we could just extend our imaginations as to what things could happen and how things could happen after this. For now, I want to express my deep appreciation for the three of you, gentlemen. This is something happened, a nice surprise, on a nice surprise news event. I'm surprised and also happily to have the three of you. Thank you so much. Yang Xiyu, Gregory, Yingnien, Tsang, and Cheng. Thank you from across the Taiwan Straits, the three of you.